Hi, I'm Brandy. I'm from Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. I'm also a member of Haunted Souls Paranormal.
And I'm Krista with Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, and I too am a member of Haunted Souls Paranormal.
Excellent. All right. How did you get into it? What experiences have you had when you were young? How did you get into this?
I guess I had always had experiences even before I could remember. My mom would tell me stories and things like that. She would say that I would see things, I would talk to things that weren't there. The one that she tells me repeatedly is about a story of they brought home a red rocking chair for me when I was very little, and I kept saying, hey, there's somebody in there. There's somebody in that chair, so I'm not going to sit in it. So I never sat in the chair, and then one day they saw it move. So it started rocking by itself, and it just throughout my entire life, I just kept hearing, things, seeing things out of the corner of my eyes. There's always somebody talking somewhere. So it's just a part of the way I grew up, and unfortunately for me, my mom was into the paranormal also, so made me feel like I wasn't crazy, everything was normal, that this is normal, and I just kept going with it, that's all.
And then for me, it started, my very first memory was back when I was in high school. I went to a brand new high school, and I was walking through the halls. It was passing period, and I was walking with a friend, and I saw an old man pass us in the hallway during passing period. And I asked my friend, I said, well, I wonder what he's doing here. We kind of laughed about it because he was so out of place being in a high school. And she's like, what are you talking about? She didn't see what I saw. So I believe I saw my first ghost at that time. And then so many years later, I really didn't do anything with it. It kind of interested me, but I was more scared, honestly, at the time. And then I have a friend who lives in a haunted house, and that's where I started with the paranormal, and that was back in, I started witnessing things in her house back in 2005.
That was behind you.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Door
right.
slam.
Yeah, it's right behind you.
That's
Yeah.
the second time it's happened.
Yes.
I thought it was behind you. Okay.
No, it was.
The
behind
one was.
The
but
first
now,
one we
yeah.
came in was back there, but this one was behind you.
Yeah, I think we have other people here with us.
Well, yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What are some of the most significant paranormal encounters that you've had throughout your entire life? Like full body apparitions, shadow people, let's talk about some of that.
Gosh, it's all of the above.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it's just the randomness of seeing these things. I mean, you could be just walking into a building somewhere and you'll catch them right out of the corner of your eye. Yeah, I believe that they're everywhere. So you hear them talking, you can watch them. It's just they're everywhere. And I think that the one that scared me the most, I would say, was I was at Ohio State Reformatory, and we were in the very attic where some traumatic things had happened between inmates and things like that. And we were just sitting there, and we're at the very end of this whole attic. It's very long and large. And we were watching down at the end, and we could see this blue glimmer come across. And then eventually it manifested into where you could actually see legs walking, and you could see it just doing this. And there's four of us, and we're sitting in chairs, and I'm on the very end. And at one point, everything went completely black. I could not see a thing. It was as if somebody stood right in front of me and I couldn't see anything. But everybody else on the other side of me could see. And I couldn't see a thing. And then we got up and we went out. We waited a little bit. We went back in to see if we could see this thing again. This anomaly came back through. I was sitting in a different chair, and the person who was sitting in my chair experienced the same thing that I did, as if somebody stood right in front of them so they couldn't see a thing. And I think that really got me a lot, that one right there. It was like as if we were watching one manifestation of some type of paranormal entity, and then there was another one that just kind of blocked the view. So that was really strange.
Yeah. And for me, I have to say, I've been doing this for so many years now. I have so many memories of so many different encounters. But as far as on the scary side for me, I've been choked twice by entities, 2 different locations, 2 different times, and so those really stick out for me. And then I've also helped with an exorcism in Salina, Kansas, and that was huge for me. That's something I'll never forget. And so as far as scary, that has to be my most scary time. And then, being choked, because literally you can feel hands. I could feel hands around my neck. So that's very scary. And I've been scratched. I've had my hair pulled, things like that too. So.
What happened at the exorcism?
So there was a lady who had called us in, and we have a mutual friend. That's what he does. He does the bad stuff. And we were called in. There was him, his wife, and then our friend Kathy from the Ray County Museum, and myself. We went to this location, and the lady was an ex-prostitute from Wichita, Kansas. The gentleman was, he had done many, many years in prison for murder. He was part of the M13 gang. And so they had kind of told us some of the things that had happened, but you never go in thinking it's a bad encounter. Till you get there, you get your own evidence. And so, he had talked about, and he was a big boy. I bet he was probably 350, but he was also tall, very, very big man. And he had talked about being thrown across the room and different things like that. So we got there, we didn't come out saying it was the D word, the demonic, but yet we kind of had our guards up. So we always do a walkthrough, base readings, things like that. When we got there, there was nothing. The house was absolutely quiet, not feeling anything at all. And so Kathy and myself, we went outside, and we're like, there's nothing out here. I don't know what they're seeing, but we can't replicate anything. I mean, we're not even getting a knock. We're not getting EVPs. We're not getting anything. And so there was a storage building out back. And so we were kind of drawn to it. And all of a sudden, at once, so Kathy and I were probably the same distance here as Brandy and I, and something rushed us and literally knocked us both back. We're like, okay, so we found something here. So we went in, we told our friend who is the exorcist, like, listen, it's out here, we found it. And he does it on a metaphysical way when he does these type of things. So, he went in, and he before we went in the house, he said, for some reason, I'm picking up the BTK killer. And I told him, I said, I don't know why, because the BTK killer's still alive. He's in some prison, but he's still alive. And so we went inside, and our friend, he brought it up to the lady, I picked up something about the BTK killer. She started crying immediately. She was one of his only known survivors of the BTK killer when she was a prostitute many years ago in Wichita, Kansas. So that was pretty amazing, that he picked up on that. So he told me this entity was out back. He was going to call it in, and he had me stand in a hallway. So there was a back door here, and the front door was here, and then we were kind of in the living room. But on the hallway, he had me stand right before the living room. And he told me, he said, show no fear, stand here, do not move until I tell you to move. I'm like, okay, I got this, And at the time, when you're dealing with something negative like that, like prayers come in, like, you're powerful, And so he called it. It took a little bit of coaxing, but this entity came in, and I kid you not, I literally felt the breath on my face. It was right here in front of me. And he said, move. And I just stepped out of the way. He came in. She was sitting on the sofa. He grabbed her hands, and he started doing his thing. And we started saying the Lord's Prayer over him. And we watched, kid you not, swear on the Bible, we watched invisible razor blades slash him up, his head, his arms, his chest, and blood started seeping through his shirt. I mean, there was definitely spiritual warfare going on. And when it was all said and done, and like I said, saying the Lord's Prayer is a very powerful prayer. And you start out saying, Our Father who art in heaven, but by the time this is going on, your adrenaline is rushing, it's like, Our Father who art in heaven, like we meant our words we were saying. And the power of prayer and the power of God, like this thing left her. And it was absolutely like the room changed. It got bright. It was amazing. I can't even put it into words what we witnessed. But in the meantime, our friend, he was all bloody, and he was a hot mess. But the entity, he removed it. He removed the entity from her. And since then, like the house was dark and dreary, windows were closed, so we told her, let some sunlight in and bring positivity here, let light in. And since then, she had wrote us and said that she had tried out for American Idol and didn't get chosen, but yet the fact that she even got out of her house and to do something that big, that was huge. So, you know, to me, yes, that was scary, but I wouldn't take that back for anything because we help these people, you know, and that's what it was about. But that, I have to say, was probably my most frightening experience. So we had you know, I was part of an old paranormal team, and we had a private case, you know, that we went to, and a lady had talked about. She was a single lady, lived in a trailer park in St. Charles, Missouri, and we went there, and she was talking about she was being touched inappropriately. And so whenever, you know, we hear claims, you know, we try to recreate everything. And so myself and another teammate who was a woman, and then there was I think there was 3 more guys that were there with us, and they were in the other room. And you know, we went back in her bedroom, and we had a REM pod, and so we would, you know, I would ask it, you know, well, if you do this, I'll let you touch my leg, you know, type thing. And so like the REM pod would go off. If you could make it, you know, go off 2 times, you know, you can touch my left leg or something like that, you know, and it was doing that. So I kind of laugh about that because, you know, she and I both were kind of propositioning this ghost to, you know, trying to recreate that, like what this lady was, her claims. And in fact, it was true, you know, because after that was over, we laid there and she could, my teammate, she felt something going up her leg. So, you know, we definitely, you know, we believe the lady because we caught that. So
That's kind of crazy, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd like somebody touching my legs or stuff like that, but I mean, it does happen. It absolutely does happen. That brings to mind, we were in Iowa. Was it last year? We were just in Iowa.
Malvern Manor.
We were in Malvern Manor, and I had taken some of the group upstairs, and we were all the way up in the attic, and it's very, very hot up there. So everybody just kind of found a place. There were some chairs up there, so there were people sitting. I was sitting in a little alcove, and there were people sitting to the left and to the right of me. And we started hearing footsteps up in the same room in the attic that we were in, and we were talking, and we're like, we hear you, you know, can you talk to us? Can you come over here? You know, that sort of thing. And then we were talking amongst ourselves. And then all of a sudden, one of the ladies turned around, and she says, you know, I feel like something's behind me. I keep hearing something behind me. I feel like something's behind me. And I'm like, okay, you know, so I turned in my chair to look at her. And then you see her daughter, you know, was sitting in a chair almost beside me, and she kind of goes like this. And then you could hear, you know, on the recordings that I have, you can hear scratching come up the wall. And it took my arm and physically pushed my arm where I have never been touched like that before, because it felt like a human hand had touched my arm. It had warmth to it, which is very weird. And it just took my arm and just kind of slapped it. And I was like, you know, of course I jumped up, and I didn't say any cuss words. It was kind of like, oh, Jesus, God bless America, or something like that, I said.
You said, God bless America.
Did I say God? That's
yes.
my favorite saying, is God bless America. And I had never been, I guess, physically with somebody with the hands on. I had never been, and that was my first time having that happen. And that was pretty scary too. I mean, normally I get like, they like to pull on my hair. That is the first and foremost thing that happens. It doesn't matter if I have my hair up in a bun, if I have it down in a braid, whatever. It's always a tug or a shirt pull or something like that. I'd never had something grab a hold of me like that. So that was one of those startling moments for sure.
Yeah, and then another time that I can tell you about that is really sticks out for me. It was at the Ray County Museum, and our friend that I had told you about with the Exorcism, he's a well-known psychic medium, and he's, you know, everything physically touches him. And at the time, the museum, there was a nasty entity there. It was the one that had choked me. And so we knew, because our friend Kathy stays there, so we wanted to make sure it was safe for her, you know, to be there. And so our friend he's like, you know, let's see about doing, you know, getting rid of it. And so we were upstairs on the 3rd floor, and the Ray County Museum, it has 50 different rooms, all different themed. You know, everything from a World War II room to grandma's kitchen. You know, it's not really negative. It's just different themes over, you know, the last 200 years, I would say. And so, you know, we're upstairs, and there was a schoolroom, and our friend, Kathy, she was standing on one side of him and I was standing on the other, and he's like, I got to sit down, I'm going to go down. So we both kind of grabbed him up underneath the arms and sat him down. We took him into the schoolroom and sat him down in one of the old desks, like you see like on like Little House on the Prairie show, that they kind of, the long ones. And so he sat there. All at once, there were several other people there, and thank goodness, because his eyes, he was sitting there, his eyes I watched turn black. Then he grabbed another teammate and pulled him over in front of me. And all at once, my friend went up to attack me. And it took about 4 people to get him down, to keep him off. And he's not a big guy, and he had this unbelievable strength. And the room got destroyed because they were trying to keep him from attacking me. I started, once again, because the power of prayer, I started saying, "Our Father, who art in heaven," started saying that over him. And eventually the thing left and he was back to himself. But he said he felt himself wanting to just unalive me. And so he grabbed my friend to get between us because he knew it was coming, that he was getting ready to attack me. And it took 4 of them to get this little guy from attacking me. So he had undeniable power and strength in that. So this entity, it did jump him. Since then, it's been removed. He did remove it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's frightening. To say
Yeah,
the least.
yeah. So I've had some scary, encounters that, yeah.
Yeah, keep you up at night.
Yeah. Stuff.
Mine aren't as scary, but no,
Yeah.
I don't want those.
Yeah,
You can keep
Yeah.
those. I don't want those.
Yeah. But once again, I do this, I got into this to help people, and that's what it's about for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so what type of experiences have you guys had here at this facility?
You go first.
Oh gosh, we can just start with our very first time here. We were in the college building that it goes right down this hallway and you turn and there's the college building. And I would say within the first 5 minutes, we had walked in and we were in a bathroom that is said to, a woman had passed away in there. And so we were in there and we were talking, and 5 minutes of being in that room, we started hearing this whistling man.
Audible.
Yeah, it wasn't an EVP, it was definitely a disembodied voice, and we kept hearing it over and over and over again. And the funny part is that every time we'd come here, we'd hear that whistle. Well, I was just here probably about a month ago, and I had, done the building, heard the whistle, thought it was great, went home. I was at home, and out of nowhere, I heard the same whistle, same tone, it was the same everything. I heard this whistle in my house. And so I told everybody that I was hearing this whistle in my house. And then just last week, I was on a live stream on our podcast, and I heard the whistle again. It was in my bedroom, and I was in my office, but I heard it in the bedroom. So I was like, that's not right. I probably, have done something, took this guy home with me. So then Krista tells me they had an event here last week, and they were saying, hey, listen for the whistle, listen for the whistle. Nobody heard the whistle
Nobody heard the whistle.
the entire weekend.
And I asked several people, and I told a lot of the ladies, because it seems like it's more on the ladies' side where you hear the audible whistle. So I told the ladies that go down here, keep your ears open, we hear whistles, and then they would come back and I would ask them. Nope, didn't hear anything. So nobody heard it last week.
Nobody heard it last week. So I was bound and determined when I heard it that I knew I was coming here this weekend. I said, you're going to get in the car, we're going back. So I came back here, I went into the building, I said, now you're home, you got to stay here. That's it, that's final, we're not doing anything else. So I've been trying to listen if this thing had come back, and I've went in there several times into that building, have not heard that whistle. Finally, Maddie from Haunted Souls Paranormal shows up today, and I'm like, hey, there's some tunnels that I hadn't been through. I said, take me through those tunnels, and it took us out down by that building. But I had told them about this whistling man that I kept hearing. And I said, let's go down there and see if we can hear the whistle. We're like, okay, fine. So we walked down there, and we were messing with the door that wouldn't open. That was due to somebody shutting it when they shouldn't have. But we heard the whistle. So now I know that the person's back. And I looked at her and I said, did you hear that whistle? She said, yes, absolutely. And she says, I'm not going anywhere with you alone in a haunted building again. She said, that's over. That's over. So, yeah, so she, she heard it, I heard it. So we know that it's back where it belongs.
Well, that's good.
So maybe,
You don't want it at home.
No, I don't want it at home. But maybe other people can hear it in the future because it is pretty cool to when you can get this thing to interact with you. So, maybe other people can hear it too.
Yeah.
So get that experience.
Now I feel like I have an ability because as soon as I got here, I was like, underground tunnels.
Oh, yeah.
Like something told me.
Yeah.
I mentioned it to you. I was like,
You
I
did.
think there's some underground
Yep. And sure enough,
areas
there
that
is.
lead to
You,
different
can,
parts of the
you can
building.
get through all of these different buildings without walking outside.
Yeah, and I found it. So now I know how to get to here from there over on the other side in the asylum building. So now,
Yep.
and it'd be perfect place to investigate.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
For sure. Okay, so you guys had some experiences at LBL. If you would tell me about
Yep.
that.
So we've been there several times. We always go with a group of people. And one of the very first times, it was the middle of January. It was super cold out. It was mid to low 20s outside. And we were at one of the places called Energy Lake out there. And it was just our group. There was about 10 of us, I would
Yeah,
say.
about 10.
We had a campfire going, and our friend Martin Groves was there. He was talking about his encounter that he had happened to him out there at the Land Between the Lakes. And so we're all sitting around the fire, and as he's talking, we start seeing these lights off in the woods. And it's the middle of January. We were the only ones out there at Energy Lake. There was no people walking around out there with flashlights. And so, it wasn't just one of us that started seeing these lights, all of us, the whole group. But what was really amazing is that we all saw different colors and different sizes. So for me, I saw a white one, but the main one that sticks out for me, I saw a reddish orange one, probably the size of a beach ball. And I was not alone that saw that one. And another gentleman that was there, he saw it as well. But the fact that it was the size of a beach ball, they're not very small, a beach ball, and for it to, I don't know, it probably came within 20 feet of us. And, I can't explain that. That night.
So, right, that was crazy anyway. But in the midst of all of that, we're sitting around a fire and we're watching all this stuff happen. Well, I jump up out of my chair because I see two red eyes, like you could see red eye shine, like clearly. And I'm grabbing in my pockets. I'm trying to pull out my phone. I'm trying to get a picture of this. I can't get my phone out, and I'm looking at it. And she's like, "What are you looking at?" I said, "I see red eye shine. I see red eye shine." And she's like, where? And I pointed it out, and I'm like, it's over there, but I'm the only one who got to see it.
And what else happened that night that was pretty amazing, we're all sitting around the fire, and we're all talking, and we could hear something surrounding us, walking in the woods, and we would shine a light. There was nothing there. And it was so bad that another podcasters that are Cryptid Studies Institute, Gabby and Elijah Henderson, were there with us. And Gabby actually got up because she heard it right behind her, got up and moved because she didn't want her back to something she couldn't see. And I don't blame the girl.
Right.
So that was pretty creepy because there was nothing. You shine a light and there was nothing. We look for squirrels, we look for deer, everything that we could think of that would be out there. There was nothing. Nothing.
It was so cold, and even later that night, it started to actually rain ice. It wasn't sleeting; it was raining ice, and so we knew that it was so cold out there. So we're just like, we know that bugs were not a factor in any of this.
People weren't out there walking around in the woods.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we were out there solely alone, so we knew exactly what we were dealing with. We were in a very controlled environment, because
Only ones in the
we
campground.
were the only ones there.
Yeah, so you ran into the beast of LVL. Do you think it was a dog man, possibly, the red eyes?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I don't even know what it was. I mean, could I have been dealing with orbs that were right next to each other? Possibly. Was it a dog man? I don't know. I cannot say yes or no to it. It's just, that's what I saw. And That's it. I'm not going to say it was or it wasn't because I don't know.
Yeah. When those beings were walking around the camp, did you guys see any silhouettes, anything like that?
Not a
I did not, just
nothing.
the orbs.
Just
And
the
like I
orbs.
said, it wasn't just like I saw it by myself. Everybody
Yeah,
in
we all
camp was
saw 'em.
seeing them. We would all point out, look at that one, or you know, oh yeah, I saw that one too, and it was blue or whatever, you know.
And the one that I saw was, it was like so bright it looked like a flashlight.
Right.
And as it came closer and coming around the tree line, well, there was nobody behind that holding a flashlight. There was nobody there.
Everybody in camp was accounted for. We were all right there.
We were all
in
standing
camp.
right there.
So the orb activity started up. You guys noticed the orbs, and then you heard creatures walking around the woods.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And where we were, you know, like I said, it was campground. Yes, it was trees, but it was sporadic trees. It wasn't like we were sitting in the middle of the woods. It was a campground,
Yeah.
you know. So it wasn't like, you know, if we shined a flashlight,
It wasn't dense.
you would be able to
Yeah,
see
it-
something. Yeah,
yeah.
it wasn't dense. And plus, in the wintertime, there isn't any leaves on the trees. So, you know.
You could see pretty well through the
Yeah.
trees easily.
Yeah, and there was nothing there that we could see, but
Nothing.
we sure as heck could see it, could hear them, you know.
Yeah.
How long did they walk around?
Oh gosh, we were there for hours,
I-
hours.
I think it started towards the end of our evening out by the campfire.
Yeah,
I think
and then it
that's-
would get more sporadic throughout the night, and then Brandy also did the singing bowl that night.
the singing
Before
bowl.
the orbs appeared, correct? You did the singing bowl?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you feel like the singing bowl triggered the activity?
I mean, because it could be the vibration, it could be just the sound itself, it could be just curiosity, whatever it is, it did attract whatever, I think, attracted whatever we saw.
Yeah, and then also another time over at the LBL, we were at Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and that is an area that is known by the 1982 supposed kill site. It's a little distance from there, and this was broad daylight. Brandy and I were walking through the cemetery. She was running her recorder, and we're just talking, just having regular conversation, and we were the only ones here at the cemetery, and we didn't hear anything, nothing wonky while we were there. Later that evening, go back to camp, and she started playing, just listening to see if we picked up anything. She captured a door closing. Literally.
Sounded like a
There's
door
no
shutting.
doors. There's no doors out in the middle of the woods. And once again, Martin Groves was with us, and he said that's what he heard
Right.
when
Now-
he had his encounter.
Right.
So
Some people associate that sound with the opening of a portal.
Yeah.
Or you know, or something like that. And maybe that's what we were
Yeah.
looking at. Maybe that's, you know, because we were just down the road from that the alleged kill site. So, is there a lot of stuff weird in there? Yes. Because even later on, we were out there at a different time, same spot. It's just we were across the road, and we were down this trail, and then more orbs appeared out of nowhere. Just hanging out, just doing their thing. And they look like kind of like fireworks to me. They were red and they were sparkling like a regular sparkler would look like. And that's what it looked like to me. But other people were seeing like a gold one going up and just all different colors. Everybody was seeing all kinds of different ones again. And some of us were seeing the same ones. The LBL is definitely
weird
it has its
in every aspect. It's got
I don't even know how to
something.
put it. It has its moments where you don't know whether to stay or leave. You know, it does have those moments. But honestly, it's beautiful. It pulls you in. It sucks you in. Once you have that first experience there, you keep wanting to go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I want to check it out sometime.
Holler at us. We'll take you to all
We'll
the good
take it.
spots, all the hot spots. We know them all. Yep.
All right, sounds
Well.
good. Okay, so you had a Bigfoot encounter.
Together, yes, together.
Okay.
Yep.
And you guys were camping in Missouri, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Tell me about it.
down in Ava. She's going to start because actually the story starts with her and then ends with me. Go ahead.
Yep. So we had been there for a couple days camping, and it was funny because we were all going to go walk up into the woods and that evening, but one of the fellow investigators, he said, "Hey, we got a little rain shower coming, so we'll go after." We're like, "Okay." And so this was at a private residence in Ava, Missouri. So There was a bunch of us camping. I would say there was probably 12 to 15 tents up there. And we were kind of all in a half circle. And I'll be happy to send you the pictures of how our camp was and all that stuff so you can kind of get a visual of what was going on. So that night, it wasn't just a little rain shower. It was a monsoon that came through.
Definite storm.
Yeah, it was an awful storm. Thunder, lightning, the rain. It was terrible. And even the cook tent was blown.
Yeah,
it was just
twisted,
awful.
and it trash went everywhere, and because we had it all nice and bagged because we want to leave it the way we found it, of course. So everything was tied up, and by the time the storm was over, it looked like a disaster had gone through the area, and people had lost their tents and everything to the storm. We thought we were going to lose ours because we were just watching it tip. We had it tied down, and we were watching it tip. We were just wondering if it was going to take off. But unfortunately, she had her cot in there, and see, before the storm had started, I had an air mattress that lays on the floor, and I already knew the storm's coming in. And I'm like, well, if the tent leaks, I don't want all my stuff to get wet. I'm not sleeping in a wet bed. So I just done up all my stuff and threw it in my
Put it in your
car.
car.
So anyway, that's what happened with that storm. Go ahead.
Yeah, so after the storm, Brandy and myself, another investigator, we were kind of walking around assessing the damage. People were coming out. We were kind of looking. And so after everything kind of chilled out, we were sitting around the fire. And it's getting late, very early in the morning. So it's probably about 2:30. And we decide, well, it's time for bed. So I go in my tent, and Brandy goes into her car.
Yeah.
And so anytime before I go to sleep, I always have to just wind down, and I play my game on my phone. And so I'm laying there and I'm playing my game, and I could hear something from behind me, coming up. But we're out in the middle of the woods, so there's raccoon, there's possums, there's all kinds of things out there. So I'm not really paying too much attention to it until it got up real close, and then I'm kind of freaking myself out. You know what I'm saying? I'm not used to hearing something come up that close. And so I actually had my eyes open, and the way that the moon was that night after the storm had went through, it cleared up, and I saw a shadow. It was definitely bipedal, a shadow, and it looked like it was from about here up, and it had the conical head on my tent. So by this time, I'm scared. Not gonna lie, I was scared. I sat up because on my cot, my head was right outside where it was. So things are running through my head like, oh, come reach in, grab me, twist my neck, whatever. So I sat up on my cot, and I did look at my clock. Oh, we looked at our clocks, and it was 3:12 in the morning by then. So it was also seen on this side of our tent. We could hear it going around. And then we kind of laid there and listened, and it dissipated in the distance. So after that, I think I had an adrenaline rush, and I crashed. So this is where Brandy picks up.
Okay, so yeah, I'm in the driver's side seat, and I had it reclined. So it was very cold after the storm, so I had a sleeping bag, and I had it pulled up over my head, and I'm breathing in, my sleeping bag to keep warm. And then, I hear kind of like a footstep or two, and then I hear a tap on the front of my car. So I'm thinking, well, okay, one of the girls are up, and I'm thinking they're supposed to wake me up because, we as ladies, we never go out and use the bathroom alone, especially when we're out in the field anywhere that's remote. So we're like, okay. And then I leaned up very slowly in my seat, and I start looking at our tent. Well, I didn't see a light in the tent. The zipper was still zipped up, and I'm thinking, okay, something was just walking around my car, and I got a few taps on my car. I'm thinking, what is that? So I'm just kind of scanning, in front of the car, which there was nothing there but a tree line. And then I scan over, across and through my passenger side window where there was another tent right there, and there this thing stood. And it was kind of doing the swaying back and forth like it was trying to decide what it was going to do. I felt kind of helpless at that point because I'm sitting there, and I do have things for protection, but unfortunately it was behind me and in the floorboard in the back seat. So that was absolutely no good.
You guys hear that?
Yeah, I heard that
Yeah, I
too.
heard it. And I heard footsteps behind me too.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, hopefully you're picking it up. That's pretty cool. So you know, and I'm thinking I don't know what to do here, and I have my phone in the seat next to me. I have the phone in the seat next to me, and then I'm like, well, if I touch this phone, the light's going to come on. So I'm like, well, I can't do that either. You know, I'm like, I don't want to freak this thing out, because when I first looked at it, I'm thinking, is it human? Because, you know, you're just waking up, you're trying to get your brain to wrap around what you're looking at, because the human brain is very peculiar, because it's going to make you rationalize what you're seeing.
Right.
So then, you know, I'm like, that is way too big to be human. So my next thing is, I'm like, is that a bear? You know, because it's got to be standing on its hind legs. I see it standing there. Is that what it is? Well, we all know that bears don't have shoulders, and this thing had a shoulder. But what I could see is, because she was talking about the moon, but, you know, being as pretty as it was bright, and it was coming down, but you could see it. It was coming down on the back of it, so it was kind of making the front of this thing completely black, where I couldn't see the features, I couldn't see the gender, I couldn't see anything on it. But I could see the little hairs just peeking out from, you know, from the moonlight. I could see that it had a conical head. I could see it swaying back and forth. I could see the sheer size of it, that the chest was probably about 2.5. I would even guess maybe 3 feet wide. Okay, it was a good size. So then I'm looking at it, and then I'm trying to size it up the way I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, wow, I couldn't figure out what to do here. If I honk my horn, would it scare it? Would it make it like have a tantrum, go on a rampage? It's standing right behind somebody's tent. So I didn't want them to get hurt in case something should happen. And then, you know, if I flick on my lights, will anybody even see that? Is everybody sleeping? I don't know. So I felt kind of trapped in my car, because that thing could have come right over, broke out my window, had me out of that car before anybody could get out of their tent. Because it would have only taken a few steps, and it had been there. You know, and for everybody to scramble would have taken time. Yeah. So I would have already been gone. So, I mean, I felt this type of fear there. So I thought, well, what I can do is just make myself as small as I can possibly get, and return myself to exactly the way I was before I woke up. So I just kind of leaned back, and I pulled that sleeping bag right back over my face, and I just listened for it, and finally you hear it move off. And then I'm like, I'm not getting out of the car. I'm not calling anybody. We didn't have any service. If you could get a cell of a signal, it's very brief. And I'm like, I'm just gonna, you know, stay here and see what happens. Well, I went to sleep. We'd been out there for days, as it had been, and we were so tired, and I was just exhausted, and I just passed out from all, you know, all the excitement. And then when I woke up the next morning, when I got up, I opened up the door. I hadn't even got my feet out of the car, and I opened up the door, and they're like, stop, 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 don't move, don't move. And they're like, we had a visitor last night. And I said, I know, I saw it. I saw it. So from then on, it was fantastic. We had some trackers out there. We were filming the travel path of this whole thing. You could see the push trails. You could see the 14-inch imprints. We got
right behind my tent.
yeah. We couldn't tell around my car because, of course, it was
mowed, but behind my tent was not mowed.
Yeah, and then we trampled that too, you know, walking in and getting in and out of the vehicle. But, of course, we had a journalist there from Bigfoot Times. That would be Daniel Perez. He was there also. And he was just super excited that he was there when, you know, there was a sighting. So, I mean, it was on. I was being questioned, you know, what happened here, what happened here, what happened here. And at first, my guess was it was about 10 feet away from me. And then as we measured it, it was like 20. And I'm guessing from the sheer size of this thing that it seemed like it was closer to me. Maybe that was it. Maybe I was tired. I don't know. But he said, well, how tall do you think it was? And I said, well, about 6'5" is what I'm guessing. And he goes, why would you think 6'5"? And I said, because my brother's 6'5", and I've been looking at him my whole life. So that was about the size that that I measured it at. And then we did a measure for where I saw, you know, where I marked it with, you know, with my memory where it hit at the top of the tent, and we measured it, and it was 6'7".
So ultimately that morning we got up and you know, everybody that was downwind from us There was probably about 7 different tents. They had all, a lot of them had woke up and heard this whatever creature was there, and they all looked at their clocks too, and was really interesting. It's it's a timeline from everybody, and that was really cool.
Everybody was
it
just
just
a few
validates.
minutes, yeah.
It just validated everybody's
Because everybody was
encounter.
just a few minutes later than what we had started at.
Yeah. So
I'm the only one that didn't know what time it was.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clock, so I didn't know.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool experience. Definitely sounds like Sasquatch activity.
Oh,
I
yeah.
talked to a lot of people that talk about that. Like once they go to bed, everyone's asleep. That's when they come out. So,
And it waited. It waited until we had gone to
Yeah.
bed. And it seemed like it was out there watching us from days previous, because one of the girls that was there had an experience where she went out to use the restroom and she didn't, she went behind the tent and everything to go, and she saw the same silhouette of the same size creature, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, but she saw the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was sitting back in the
did.
tree line, so she saw its shadow there. And so
Yeah.
it was very, very strange to hear that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
It was pretty amazing just how everybody's, it all jived, and then to find the 14-inch impressions and the push trail, and it was just pretty amazing. It
We
really
followed
was.
it where it came into the camp and walked all the
Yeah.
way around
And
and
what's
walked out.
Really funny, I'll go ahead and tell you whether you want to air this or not.
up to you.
But I tell everybody that I literally mooned Bigfoot, because when we went to go to bed, I just squatted behind my tent in the taller grass and went to the restroom. And they said that next morning that they really think that he was out there watching, camp, and once it settled down, and once I put my phone down, then it really started hearing it. So we
Yeah.
kind of laugh about that, because I tell everybody
Yeah,
I
'cause-
probably mooned Bigfoot.
She did,
Yeah.
because you could watch where it came into camp and then it went back into the tree line, moved down a little bit, and then came out right by her tent
Yeah,
and then started moving around. So, yeah.
just kind of
Oh,
funny.
Absolutely.
Right?
Okay, so what else did we want to talk about at this facility?
So this was back in November of 2024. It was our first time here. And our team, we do what's called a pro night. So people who are teams and things like that, we let them come in, investigate for free, because we're trying to get word of mouth out about how great this place is. And so it was a pro night, and we were here, and our friend Terry that you met yesterday that was here with us, it was the 3 of us. We were investigating together, and we were down in the building here, and we were in the area where the bathtub was, and where Brandy had talked earlier about hearing the whistle. We walked out, and down there, it was more towards the end down there, we were just walking and talking, and we heard this howl. We're like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And we kind of like, whoa, and it sounded like it was coming from out here in the woods, not in these buildings. And so that was pretty amazing. And then fast forward to, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, once again, we were out here with the team, and we were in front of the asylum building, and one of our other teammates, we were all out there, and we heard it again, and he recorded that same sound and got it on recording. So since then I've sent it to several people, Joe Doyle, Hellbent Holler, Charlie Raymond, I sent it to him. You've listened to it, Ozark Harry Man listened to it, and what is it?
Everybody's
it's nothing
coming
native.
up with the same thing. It doesn't sound like it's
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah. I heard it live when I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it like 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
It
Yep.
sounded just like what you recorded.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
the bad thing about that whole experience is when we had come out, Terry was the only one with her audio on. I had just shut mine off, and I'm like, oh gosh, can you believe it? But that's normal stuff,
Yeah.
That's how it works.
You walk in somewhere, and then you're like, all this stuff is happening, and you're like, oh, I have no audio on.
Yeah,
Or,
and then I'm like, I asked, I said, was that a scream, or what was that? Because it totally caught us off guard. We weren't expecting to hear anything from out there. We were investigating the building, so it was pretty amazing. And that's when I'm like, hey, Brandy and I talked about it, and we went to our team like, hey, you guys might have a little more than ghosts going on out here. And then come to find out that when we had talked to the owners of Emmaus, excuse me, she's heard the audio, and she said that they hear that quite a bit, and they live right across the street. So
Yeah, they've heard it quite well, and you heard it. So
and you heard it yourself.
Yeah.
So
It seemed to be coming from the cemetery. That's where I heard it yesterday and last night. Whatever that creature was,
Yeah.
it
Right.
sounded cryptid. I've never heard an animal like that out in the woods.
well, hopefully the audio picked it up really well.
Yeah,
I'm hoping
yeah.
so.
I'm pretty excited to hear what you guys got too, because our friend Jay that you met, he recorded that too. So it's pretty incredible out here. There's a lot going on. And then last night, we also, the skies were crazy. So
Saw strange lights going through that are definitely not airplanes. They were definitely not satellites. We didn't know what they were, and they were just going like super fast. It wasn't like a shooting star or anything like that. It was nothing. They had like a direct path, and they were actually crossing each other at certain points when we were watching.
Yeah.
So I think there is definitely a trifecta here. And there's a lot of places, I think, in the world that are trifectas. It's just there's something about this particular area that just draws everything. That
Yeah.
you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And this place is amazing, for sure.
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll have to do more research here in the future.
absolutely. Anytime, you're
Yes.
welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.